Amongst the many admirable qualities about my guest today, to me personally, there are two standout features. The first is that whilst an overwhelming majority of us rue certain developments in the confines of our drawing rooms over drinks, she has actually gone and done something about it. Not just something about it, as you will find out lots about it. And number two, that her endeavors are deeply informed by lived experience. And one has noticed that whenever any path in life is chosen by consequence of something deeply and profoundly personally felt, uh, the motivation, the investment, the interest, all of that is infinitely uh, higher, more authentic, genuine, and in a world, call me cynical, where I find too many people associating with pursuits and causes motivated by questionable leanings. It's really, really wonderful to see her in action and kind of really put her life on the line for what she believes in. I'm not going to attempt to describe her work. That is best left to her, as I tend to do with most of our guests. But suffice it to say that um, the way in which a lot of us, particularly in my generation, look back at our childhoods with kind of rose tinted eyes. And then, the obvious comparisons with the kinds of childhoods that our children are leading these days. We often reminisce and are even a little bit bitter about what these children nowadays are being put through by sheer consequence of the world that we inhabit, as a stark contrast to our own, which was, I think, genuinely a lot more footloose and fancy free. So, with that tiny little hint, I'm going to welcome my guest, Farah Merchant. Farah is somebody who has birthed merchants of happiness. Like I said, I'm going to leave it to her to best describe the mission and work that MOH is doing. We are calling this session of talk therapy the joy of Farah. It kind of makes sense in so many ways, doesn't it? Because what she's doing in terms of her work is to reinstate a authentic childhood happiness. Her own name, one of its meanings is happiness. It only made sense to call it that. She's been very busy, getting a lot of press, very well deserved press. So I'm really grateful that she's made time amongst all of that for a modest organization such as ours. So, Farah, very warm welcome and thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I love the work that you're doing, and I must begin by saying, in today's world, any opportunity to have an honest, raw conversation is just its purpose, its happiness, its joy, in itself. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Wonderful. I mean, we are completely aligned as far as that is concerned. Now, tell our audience about Merchants of Happiness, please.
Sure. The Merchants of Happiness, as it's called, basically is or came up from the core belief that I've had as a child, growing into an adult, and now as a mother, that adulting or learning everything about surviving life as an adult doesn't happen to children overnight, Karthik. It doesn't, right? It's a series of life experiences and stuff that happens, and that it needs to be curated in a way where children get to learn by doing rather than only from textbooks and from other experiences as well. If I could take you back to where it began, 20 years in the corporate industry, I have, been in the learning and development and strategic leadership operational part of the corporate life. And I've trained from just joined, freshly graduated analysts to MDs and VPs as well. And I've noticed organizations invest so much time and effort and money into reteaching young adults to the grown-ups the basics of communication, what it takes to persuade, what it takes to influence, what it just takes to get your idea out from here to here and get your thoughts out. And then, of course, the bigger skills such as learning to present an idea, or learning to sell, etc. And it's always made me wonder, why haven't we done this earlier? Why
Hmm.
didn't we start, or why don't we start this earlier? And so that's why Merchants of Happiness started as a child-led event where children at the grassroots level get to learn by doing. Now, the doing could be different, right? Essentially, it looks like a pop-up. So you've seen children at stalls, and they could be doing anything. They could be selling a product, they could be bringing an idea to life, they could be playing a game with you, they could be selling things that they own, talking about books. So it's about essentially anything, but the outcome of it is not entrepreneurship. It's about building more capable human beings, because think about it this way, right? We're constantly complaining about today's leadership, today's kind of human beings, and today's kind of communities that we live in. But if you change that narrative and said, if I want a kinder leader, more compassionate leader, if I want a more, we're talking so much mental health, and we're all boiled down to resilience, just the capability to cope. If I want more resilient adults, and if I want more healthier communities where dialogue is okay and stuff. It can't start when I'm 18. It can't start because in the 12th standard we were introduced to debate and elocution. It needs to start at the grassroots level, and it needs to be a lifestyle more than a skill taught. So it's a thought change that we're trying to do. And so at Merchants of Happiness, they bring different things and they go out with different things. But it's not entrepreneurship at all. So I think
So I'm going to
that's
quickly
what,
jump in
yeah.
here with your permission. I take your point very, very clearly that there is this kind of very distinct difference between a skill that is endowed later at a stage in life
Yeah,
and honed, as
yeah,
opposed to something which is a lot more kind of ingrained and instinctive.
yeah.
Now, what I want to understand from you is that, uh, of course, there's always learning in doing and learning through doing. Uh, Obviously, when a child is, let's say, at one of your events
Mm,
and is trying to make a sale, their great learnings will be at that time. Having
mm.
said that, before you do a pop up such as this, do you have any interaction with these children and kind of give them any sort of orientation or knowledge or anything?
Yeah, so we use different terms for it, but it's just called catch-ups.
Okay.
And for about 4 weeks before the event, every child and parent gets on video calls with me, sometimes once a week, sometimes thrice a week, sometimes every single day till the morning before it's happening or while it's happening, where we elicit from the child and get the parent to handhold that process for them to understand what is it that they want to do, right? This is a process of discovery, a discovery of self, a discovery of skill, a discovery of will, if you might call it, where we talk about simple things like, of course, what's it going to take for you to put up a stall? What is success? What does it mean? What are your goals with it? What are you going to do with the money that you earn, right? How many products do you need? Why should you do this? What has been done before? So we're just having open, honest conversations and filtering through a child's idea of what will work really well. And in the end, what comes out is a finalization of a structured process of what they're going to bring, how much, how they're priced, etc., which we hand them back, but we leave them with the feeling like this was your idea. And then we go on to life skills. We're talking about you made a plan, let's learn how to stick with it. You know, we did decide we were going to do this. What happens if it changes now? We
Hmm.
bring in case studies and scenarios of past, present, and future to help them prepare about just what to expect while being very clear about the outcome is not definitive. It
Hmm.
can be different and it can be driven by you. And this is a super, super empowering process because then whether the child makes 5,000, 10,000, 45,000, they've started taking accountability of their actions have led to these consequences. Uh, and that itself turns into beautiful other learning lessons
I'm
as well.
sure.
So,
I'm
yeah,
sure.
there is this entire process that we do with the child and the parent, a lot with the parent as well. Because
Sure.
very often, as parents, we're talking about, oh, I want to teach independence. And I do give them freedom to decide. And I've given them money to see. But when it comes to action, it's very hard as a parent to let go, you know. That's my flesh and blood. I deserve to control it. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
this is where we also handhold parents, literally hold their hands to say, it's okay.
Hmm.
It's okay because
Hmm.
failure comes with a lesson, learning comes with a lesson. It's okay. We'll be okay. So, yeah, all this happens before the event and, of course, during the event as well.
So, I have a couple of points of inquiry,
Mhm.
and let me preface that by saying that I'm merely playing devil's advocate. I'm not trying to
Yeah,
be, needlessly facetious. Now, there is this entire, and I suppose this is coming from a very personal place. My own daughter attends an alternative school, and I'm one of those individuals who believes that
yeah,
there is too much acceleration that has happened in the manner, degree, and pace at
yeah,
which things are being taught at quote unquote traditional schools.
yeah,
And, ever so often, at least here in the North, one hears that, oh, abhi wo grade 2 mein aa gaya hai ya 3 mein aa gaya hai, but doesn't know tables till so and so. And, there
yeah,
are all of these kind of yardsticks and benchmarks.
yeah,
Um, so my question really, or like I said, it's really a thought aloud, is
yeah,
that on the one hand, these children are obviously attending their routine schools.
yeah,
That brings a certain amount of pressure.
yeah,
Then they would enroll into something like your program, where also, I mean, obviously, instinctively, all of us human beings, and particularly children, want to do well and accomplish
yeah.
certain milestones. I want to ask you how you kind of navigate this fundamentally so that it remains in the realm more of learning and less
Yeah.
in terms of competition
Yeah.
based pressure. And what age does this begin at?
These are really, really interesting questions because this is the core belief of what we do, right? See, Karthik, whether evolution is a part of life, right? But it's really hard to explain that to a child. That what you're worrying about today will not be your worry tomorrow or will ease up. In the same line, I might say that the education system is a far away from evolving to a point where we get everything we want as parents and children get everything they want
Hmm.
as children, or it's going to be integrated. So
Sure.
I think let's treat it as something that's not going to change. Education is education. There's years, years, years gone into making it the way it is, right? What we do at Merchants of Happiness will give every child and parent confidently the skills or the will to cope
Hmm.
with the challenges that such a stringent system brings in, right? So when a child learns, for example, that math is not my favorite topic, but they've learned through action how by certain pricing or increasing a profit or what we call as a pocket money budget, or a timeline. I've had children come back and say just through that experience that I need to get better at math.
Hmm.
Math has not changed.
Hmm.
Their openness to now looking at a subject that will help them do something else has changed, right? coping with pressure or comparison. When you started, that's the first word that came to my mind. Comparison is the thief of joy. More parents compare than the children actually get compared
Sure.
in itself as well. And that's a long, deep-rooted belief system that'll take time to change. But what we can do today for the children is saying, I think that's a strength. I think if you can read and I can write, and we can spend time together, we can still publish an article or a book together. You know what I mean? And there is a process to go through it that leads to then both children being open to, first of all, identifying strengths. So the lens changes. And then also magically being open to say, actually, I'm hoping to learn that from you too. Or when we do the calls before the Merchants of Happiness pop up, we are negotiating and arguing, and children
Hmm.
are adamant about. And I'm not saying I want them to go argue, but I do want them to see the power in being able to put their thoughts into words and knowing that the outcome is not what they can control. They can
Hmm.
drive to it. So if they
Hmm.
go back to a teacher and say that, I understand you want me to learn ABC in a certain way, but I'm having a challenge. Is it okay if I do it this way? Right? Or no? And all of this translates into real life. We're talking about assertiveness. We're talking about standing up for your rights or not being bullied or saying, I don't like something, I don't want something. It's a double-edged sword, right? Because it feels like we're giving them all the tools too early. But we do that in doses,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And so I see a direct connection between nothing of that is changing. And if it does change, you'll get to see the power of it
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
it's a child, no? It's not
Yeah.
going to come out as a script wherever we go and ratifying it. It's
Hmm.
going to come up in different places.
Correct.
But my child, for example, my son, for example, right? Everybody looks at him as my son first, right? So they expect him to be social and confident the way I perceive myself to be putting out there. But his confidence shows up in different ways today. He's able to evaluate money and not buy an extra Lego because there's a calculation of a later happening. Or he's able to walk up to a restaurant and say, do you have this dessert if I am busy having a conversation? So it comes up in different ways. It doesn't change, it supplements the skills that we're doing. And unfortunately, schools, parents, and the communities we live in, they're not doing it. But it's much more powerful done in community than in isolation,
Yeah,
right? It takes a village.
just to
So,
borrow from that point, this thought popped into my head, because also what I see and observe as an invested parent and as an educator and counselor is that there has been a automatic dilution in the journey and process and an
yeah,
overwhelming focus on the result.
yeah,
And I'm not just talking in academics, I'm talking about everything from,
everywhere. Yeah,
whether the child is trying to draw something to, a drama, play, whatever. And so I think that what your pop ups do beautifully, because it's so deeply embedded there as part of the process, is
yeah.
that I remember from my own childhood, which is what prehistoric now, but school would have this Help Age India come in, and
Mm,
we'd be told in class that there was slabs. So the more money you were able to collect, you'd get certain badges and things like that, whatever we
yeah,
found exciting at the time. And so the entire process was so shrouded in mystery, and if I may say, actually quite shady, where it
yeah,
really depended on how much your parents were willing to kind of spend, and you ran back and you kind of got those goodies, right? And
yeah,
you stood first, second, or third in class. Now, here, because there's so much focus on that entire event and the actual manning of the stall, making
yeah,
sales, that it really puts the focus on the process and the journey,
yeah,
which is a
yeah,
wonderful kind of,
yeah.
byproduct of what you're doing.
Yeah, we go
Um,
so far as to say money is not the outcome.
Hmm.
Money is the byproduct. And, it's really funny because when we do the community meeting before the event, say, what are you here for? Everybody's talking money, right? But that's
Hmm.
just conditioning that we all
Correct,
have.
correct.
I see to what you said, that I think the idea of success and goals and outcomes has been largely monetized and given names or numbers that we're
Yeah.
all working towards without now realizing as adults when we go to therapy that the more you put your heart into the work, that'll come anyways, right? So to focus on yourself. And I think that's what I want to be able to loudly say and get more people on the bandwagon with, that those skills anyways are learned skills. Those are applied skills, but those are not life skills that will help you put those into practice.
Hmm. Absolutely. But, since we're in this entire realm of enjoy the process, learn from the journey, etc., I must also say, for I suppose out of laziness, a lot
Mm.
of times in life we look at phenomena in a very binary manner. So,
Mm.
I would look at an event and say, oh, so this is all about sales, and it's so capitalist in its construct. And then on the other hand, I know that Farah is very conscious about also propagating and building in attributes such as mindfulness, empathy, resilience. How do you, of course, I don't want you to sort of spill the beans, but
Give
again,
it away.
at a fundamental level, how do you
Yeah.
ensure that you balance that messaging to children?
Hmm. The simple answer to that is we bring in different editions with different themes, right?
Hmm.
And that's again, it's learning by doing and giving the child the freedom within boundaries to do that. We had an edition that we call the Little Table of Change, for example,
Okay.
which was driven, and we do this once a year, which is a sustainability edition. Now imagine, Karthik, 25 stalls put up by children who are championing sustainability because they've been given certain criteria to follow. And at the same time, you have 25 stalls of grown up adults who are renowned names of sustainability, let's say in the city or the country. And then imagine a 20-minute panel where they both take stage together, right? And it's not business driven, it's not outcome driven, it's awareness driven. So the kids are asking them that you talk about sustainability, but I lose money. Faranti taught me like not to lose money, and people are talking about their business examples and how you can build. Or somebody's talking about, you're doing such a small part in converting, let's say, a packet of chips into a pair of sunglasses, but near my house, there's garbage all the time. So where's the sustainability there? So there
Hmm.
are children piercing through these concepts and conversations slowly and surely, and adults getting used to having the conversation. So we are not a platform where we're saying this is right and that is wrong. We are a platform that curates an environment where having a conversation is a-okay. Parents admitting that they don't know something about their child and learning through observation is a-okay. Adults are okay being questioned because we're all like-mindedly thinking about the same outcome. We're not giving them the answers, right? We're leading them to thought-provoking questions that they'll then observe. Ah, I remember that conversation. This is where it's happening. Or maybe, oh, I've heard this before. Oh, I read about this in a book. Or when it comes up in school tomorrow. So we're just adding to that theme and that subject and that confidence. So our goal is to one day have that applied to everything. Go to the grassroots level, and just as a subject like math and English and science is taught, also teach life skills through real life simulations by getting experts in the world and simplifying it age appropriately. For example, someone says, I want to become a doctor, right? And then we'll bring in doctors and say, okay,
Hmm.
what does it
Hmm.
take to become a doctor?
Hmm. Hmm.
Or what were doctors doing 5 years ago and what are doctors going to be doing? So it's not just surgery and
Correct,
operations and check
correct.
medicine, there's more. So I'd see us as in a curated environment of very driven outcomes, theme-based outcomes through certain ways of how we're doing it to increase the opportunity to have that conversation. What comes out of it is dependent on what parents and children do after the experience with it. But at least they know it's not scary to have this conversation with my child, or my child is ready, or I am ready, or I'm
Absolutely.
ready to question the school about something, right?
Hmm,
So
hmm.
it's a part of the process, if that answers your question,
It does.
to
It does very much.
bring both together.
Yeah, makes sense. Final couple of questions. Now, I give myself the convenient liberty at my age and stage of making certain rude and questionable remarks.
Oh, it's
Um,
very, very
yeah,
welcome.
so, I find that, again, oftentimes up north, this happens for sure, is that, let's say a parent has made a leap of faith and
Mm,
in kind of their construct, decided on a fairly esoteric choice and decided to send their child to a quote unquote alternative school, and then they
yeah,
get the shock of their lives because they hadn't quite figured out what that
me and you
entails.
both. Yeah, yeah.
I've in fact had examples of North Indian parents have flip outs at Rishi Valley whilst dropping their children. So, anyway, now my question being that it's safe to assume that a lot of the decisions to register and take part in your events are being made by the parents. What
Mm.
is what is the parent community seeing in what you're offering or in your communication that resonates with them? Yeah,
That's interesting. So going back to school choices, I think everything has become alternative, everything has become different, everything is traditional to a point where Instagram and Facebook are now doctors and educators and
sure.
wellness
Like just like
experts.
everything is
Yeah.
holistic.
Everything is holistic, everything is organic, right? And it becomes your responsibility as an adult to trial and error, then to navigate around what it's going to do for you.
Hmm.
That's a lesson we learn as adults, right? As parents, then, and I'm sure you'll agree, and many parents will agree, that there are two ways you can do this. One, you can say, I've paid the school, and the school has a responsibility to grow this child or raise this child. And that means everything, which I think is too heavy on any school for that matter. And then there's a choice where you can say, my job as a parent is not to draw the blueprint of success or fulfillment or happiness or joy and tell them how by quoting examples of how I've suffered, so you should not suffer. Um, at one point you can't help it, you're a parent, right? It's ingrained, it's nature and nurture, it just mashes over very time. Our job is not to give them the blueprints. Our job is to consciously expose them to environments or experiences, if I might say. And this can happen through merchants of happiness, through sports, through a STEM class, through a conference where you go attend by Harvard or by one of the schools that's creating awareness about what it takes and how you. It is your job, I think, my job as a parent, to constantly be in the line of fire and understand what different fires do, right? And through that is choose the experiences that can give your child what you're looking for right now. Correct? So I've had parents come to me and say, I just want them to do it for fun. And
Hmm.
it is fun. Imagine you and your friend or your cousin doing this at a stall.
Sure.
You've got money, you're selling, people believe in you. You're like, oh my God, we're the coolest best friends ever. That's what a child takes off, not the product, nothing. Like we work really well as a team,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
they've taken back teamwork and fun and thing.
yeah.
Or imagine a parent coming up and say, my child is in the 10th grade but does not talk at all. Now, what they're saying is not a personality trait, right? They're talking about my child is aware but is not able to put those skills out in order to prove themselves in a system that is so defined, right? And so we're talking to parents about communication may mean talking and communication may be visual representation. And so let's see what your child is most comfortable with. And
Hmm.
most often than not, a parent will come and say, what have you done to my child? Because my child's now asking me to go and not stand at the stall. So Parents should be constantly looking out for opportunities without definitive outcomes.
Sure.
If I send them for a sport or a team-based or an activity or a play date or a birthday or emergence of happiness, there is still going to be value add to my child's growth.
Yeah, yeah.
Just a visual, I've seen more than I know, and hence I know more. And so I think that is a responsibility that all parents should take. We're seeing a huge change in that. We're also seeing parents of saying that I really think my child needs to survive in today's world, and they need to learn sales, and they need to learn to just convince their father for a cycle, or tell their teachers something, or stand up for, she writes so well, but she never tells people she writes so well. Or we've had a book we've written when we were 7, but we don't know where. How
Mm,
do I give
mm,
my child
mm, mm,
where that bridge? Because we've had child-led authors, child-led bands,
mm,
child chefs,
mm,
game organizers, poetry, poets, for example, jewelry makers, artists who you will not believe can bring to a point where every time somebody says, we'll bring this to your, as an adult company, I'm like, I think my children do it way better. So it's our responsibility to keep looking for it. It's our responsibility to not put solid, stringent outcomes to it as parents, and then say whatever comes back, my child will be able to carry that forth in
mm,
every
mm.
exposure that they've had.
Yeah,
If that
absolutely. Also, I think it's incumbent on the parent to always s- help a child distill,
Yeah,
certain takeaways and learnings,
yeah.
etc. But yeah, well, I think it might be a wonderful way of sort of concluding this discussion by you sharing perhaps, an example of either a parent's story or particular child's story where what they kind of took away or evolved into
Yeah.
as a result of having done one of your camps really sort of made you proud and made you get this sense that this thing that I've embarked on is really making a difference.
There are many, Karthik, from a parent saying thank you because they've called me behind the scenes and said, can you please talk to him? He's not listening to me. To saying thank you. This was an opportunity for my husband to do something with my child and make time. To an opportunity where grandparents have come forth and said, thank you for teaching them in such a simple way. The whole family showing up to there are very few occasions these days. We're so nuclear that our mindset is nuclear as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So this is something I say to my brothers very often as well. Don't only call me when there's good stuff. I mean, bad stuff. Call me when there's good stuff.
Mm, mm,
Like,
mm,
tell me there's about a great thing at work. So there are
mm.
opportunities like those. There are opportunities where from the beginning a child has been very adamant about their way, and suddenly during the call or the conversation or the pop-up, they've had a eureka moment. Auntie, 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 you know what I did? You know what I did? And I'm like, yes, tell me what you did. And it could be something very simple to an adult, but to them it was life-changing. To sales that happen about something as simple as a beaded bracelet, or a friendship band or a knitting or a crochet that does not look like a company product, a finished product, but a
Mm.
product that they were proud of doing. Two monetary benefits as well, where there's this family that has two daughters, and their cousin brother lives in a boarding school. He was in between, and they've done this 2 years now. They were moving from one school to another, so the brother comes down to Bangalore. Three of them put up a stall. The brother's father does a business of shoes and caps, right? Like simple white kids and shoes. Said, Auntie, I love drawing and I've always wanted to have my cool collection of my shoes and caps. And I'm like, bring it on, right? And he sells each pair for a mere 750 to 950, a cap and a pair of kids. And he had sizes and everything we worked through.
Wow.
And the sisters sold, coasters and artwork and trays made out of mosaic and paper and upcycle. They went back home with a whopping and
Wow.
an investment of just about 8,500. And the mother, both the mothers called me up because they're friends, 3 weeks later and said, I don't know how to say this, but we had such a cool time. And I'm like, yeah, I saw they had a cool time. We bought a pair of shoes. Everybody loved it. I loved how he was drawing. She's like, no, I meant like, the kids made 48,000. And I'm like, wait, what? So there's monetary, there is skill, there's will, there's parent-child bonding, which I'm a huge advocate for. There is breaking of taboos. There's understanding that you don't need to constantly whine and fight about a system, but that you can have your own way to work around it if you can communicate. And one of our proudest moments amongst many is when the Taj Group Hotel, hired a 9-year-old girl who made these little care packages. And I say this everywhere I go. It's a brown paper package, a pink little printed cover, and on that it's written a rubber band, a earbud. This is what you'll find inside. And I'm thinking this is the Gen Alpha first aid kit, thinking some
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
But you open the note and it says, a band-aid to cover your wounds every time you can't talk about it, or a rubber band to hold your friendship. Like, who does that at 9?
Wow.
And that's because she's a
It's giving me
compassionate,
goosebumps. Yeah.
yeah, she's compassionate, she's sensitive. The weirdest part was everybody around her named her as a highly sensitive child. Like she'd look at a movie and go, and she'd look at a dog and cry, or a cow on the road, which is the most common. And everyone thought, oh, she's too sensitive.
Hmm.
But sensitivity is also a power,
Of course.
right? And when she brought that power in the form of a package and thought, who's going to buy this? She got the biggest validation of her life,
That's
right?
just beautiful. Absolutely.
So it's like a variety, and every moment is a building block in the community that we're building, in the parenting that we're trying to say is okay, and in learning how to sit with it and accept it and be proud of your choices with your child. So yeah, there are many.
So, specifically in terms of mindset, thought
Yeah.
process, what has been just one really kind of learning for you as an insight, either into children's mindset or parents?
There are many comments, right, Karthik? Because I can tell you this as an adult who's done therapy versus my child versus the thousands of parents and children. I think everybody wants to be seen.
Hmm.
Everyone wants to feel like a sense of belonging. And I think we should take off these labels of you'll only belong if and you'll fit
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
if. I mean, we've got great examples. All the podcasts and everything that's coming out has got these great entrepreneur, startup, founder, doctor, physicians, and all of them have had a crazy process so far. You have to have a little cuckoo genius to make it that far. And I embrace it, and I tell children to embrace it. And I'll quote a quick example: a child who's got learning development challenges. Her parent was constantly telling just everyone who came, "Don't mind, she's loud." And I'm the loudest person at Merchants of Happiness. In fact, they have to compete with me to say hello and good morning. And I said, well, she's just like Farah auntie. And people just stopped, and parents stopped. The parents stopped saying that that's a trauma-led introduction.
Yeah, yeah.
Every child, every adult wants to be seen, wants to be heard, every parent. And I think we all deserve that. And that can happen when we constantly challenge our way of thinking, and keep it open. That's one. And so we want Merchants of Happiness to be that place, right? Second is it is much easier doing things as a community than building in isolation. I
For
think
sure.
half the reason 95% of the world is in self-proclaimed, I'm in therapy, I'm depressed. Like, listen, we've all lived our lives and our stories deserve to be heard. It deserves compassion. But trauma helps you understand you better. It can't define you as a person. So I believe strongly that when you reach out for help and seek community, it is not going to become less harder, but you learn to cope better with the process. So that's parenting, raising children, having difficulties, anything. And I think
Absolutely.
my
In fact, I
third
was
and
just going to
final
say that
thing, yeah,
they say, one hears it takes a village, but that village really is ideally gonna, you want it around for the rest of your life.
yeah, yeah. And my third final thing is chase happiness. Just chase happiness every day. I watched this TED Talk recently, and I had a book club this morning where I was talking about a book and discussing, and it boiled down to my own beliefs that I've seen as a child and now as a parent as well, that we should teach children the difference between joy and happiness. On Instagram, you'll say, don't say you did a great job, say this. That's not the answer. Understanding that joy is instantaneous and it can come through short-term goals being achieved, the color of something, the environment, a beautiful day, the sun, that's joy. Happiness is built over time intentionally, right? If we can just give our children saying that these are parts of the process, but you're still a happy person, and we can reaffirm that, and I call that literally chasing happiness, to a point where everyone's like, why do you wake up so happy? It is bizarre, and that's because I've been like that. Some people call, a therapist once called it a trauma response. But now through that work, it's just who I am. I choose to wake up and things become easier. Coping becomes easier, not the
Most
outcome. So I
certainly,
think these are
most
my
certainly.
three. Like, we want to be seen. Let's create that positive impact in the environment around it. I feel like you need to take out labels and not go with that
Shoehorn,
as you're
yep,
leading.
yep.
So then comparison goes away. Chase happiness. I feel like that's worth it. And you don't have to wait again till you're an adult and gone through a life heartbreaking experience to realize that you can teach children that from now. And I don't know what the outcome is, but it definitely becomes more joyful every day, you
Most
know?
certainly it does. In
Yeah.
fact, one of my favorite films, although that's slightly different, but certainly its title is what
Yeah.
I would like to end on as the main takeaway for me personally from this interaction is the pursuit of happiness,
Yeah.
which is, I think it's the most worthy cause. A lot of people may think it's selfish, but
Yeah.
ultimately it just brings incredible contentment and happiness at a very broad level.
Yeah. And that's why it's called Merchants of Happiness, because we're all merchants and we're all capable, of giving and taking that interaction that
Well,
makes
I when I first saw what you were doing, I was very inspired. You radiate happiness. You're the best ambassador.
happy.
More power to you. Keep doing your
Thank you.
amazing work. It's been a lovely
Thank you.
conversation, and if at all you decide to come north of the Vindhyas,
Oh, I do. I do.
okay,
We'll be there
wonderful. Then
soon.
we should talk about that off camera in any case.
Offline,
All
definitely.
the best, Farah. Thank you so much.
Dan, thank you. Have the best day. Bye,
You too. Bye
Karthik.
bye.